Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of A Story with Gorte. Today we'll be reading chapter 2 of The Scarlet Rose. But before that, let us recap chapter 1. Remember, Misty was in search of a flower known as ghost moss. She found it in the ruins of Calicor. She left the city with her friend Meldrin, who was there to help her do a delivery in Grimdall. When they reach Misty's house, Misty finds a letter saying that is addressed to her mother about some kind of spear that her mother was looking for. And so their priority now is to go deliver that letter to the Grand Council. Misty's mother, Makora, receives the letter, and her and King Bron tell Misty to go on this little quest or mission to go see what's happening in these ruins up north. And she's like, okay, I'll go do that. Misty goes to Meldrin and Lazarus, which is Meldrin's younger brother, and says, hey, my mom wants me to go search some ruins. You guys want to come with? They're like, yeah, sure. So they rest until the next morning. Misty, however, goes to her shop where she's waiting for a delivery of flowers. And she gets that by the delivery man named Dylan. He gives Misty a whole bunch of flowers plus new potions, and he gives her a rose and says that some guy in a black robe has told me to give this to you. And she's like, okay. So that night, Misty was fooling around with it. She was trying to study it, trying to see what was, what the purpose of this rose was. And as she grabbed the stem, the thorns plucked her hand, and this ball of energy came out. It started to burn her throat, and then she passed out. And that is where we left off in chapter 1. Now it is chapter 2, and at this point, I would like to say go ahead and grab your snacks, go ahead and grab your drinks, and just sit down and relax, because this is chapter 2. Alright. Misty woke to the sun shining into her room. She stood stretching her body and walking into the bathroom to wash up. She looked in the mirror and noticed a black design around her neck that came around to her shoulder. She took off her shirt and saw it on her back. It was like a tattoo had appeared around her body. It wouldn't come off. What the hell is this? She questioned. She ran to her bed and noticed the rose was wilted away, its petals falling. What happened last night? She grabbed a robe and wrapped it around her body, trying to cover the tattoo with her hood. As she left the inn, she saw Meldrin and Lazarus waiting for her. Damn it! They're already awake. Are you ready to go? Meldrin asked. No, not yet. I need some new clothes. Meldrin nodded. Okay, we'll wait here. Misty ran to the tailoring shop where she was greeted by an elderly woman. She smiled with her wrinkly face. Misty picked out a long blue skirt with a blue shirt with baggy sleeves, and a blue cape that wrapped around her neck. She knew it would be casual, and the cape would be an addition to her glamour. Misty paid the lady and rushed back to the inn to change. Misty smiled and nodded that she was ready to leave. The three loaded on the wagon and headed out through the gates to the north to the ruins. The ride was silent as they made their way to the ruins. They came to a field of flowers and plants. Misty hopped out and stopped to examine them. She picked up a flower with a golden petals and a brown stem. She grabbed a few more and went on to the next bunch. Meldrin put his hand on his hips. Are you done yet? I'm sorry, I'm just collecting some flowers. We see that, but don't you think we have other matters to attend to? Misty sighed. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, Meldrin. Let's continue. She hopped back on, and they continued to the ruins. As time passed, they came to an old broken-down wall with a sign that was shattered in half. They could only make out a few letters. A-S-H-M. The rest of it was destroyed. Meldrin parked the wagon at the front gate, and the three dismounted. Meldrin took out his sword as protection of his little brother. The entrance, built from stone, crumbled at their feet. They walked around the entrance and entered the town. They walked around and entered the town. Is this it, Misty? Is this the ruins your mother was talking about? Misty shrugged. Yes, I suppose so. The village was just like Calicor. The buildings were nothing but a pile of debris, and the smell of burnt wood filled the area. What happened here? Lazarus asked. I don't know, but this has to be just recently, Meldrin replied. Misty nodded. Yeah, I agree. This isn't right. As they went deeper into the village, they saw a church that still stood. The church had a golden cross on it and stained glass windows. The doors to the church were open. Meldrin took a look inside, with Misty and Lazarus following close behind. The smell of decaying flesh burned in their nostrils. Misty felt movement moving up her throat. She swallowed it, leaving a bitter, sour taste in her mouth. She heard the sound of vomiting behind her and saw Lazarus bent over. Meldrin tended to him and walked him back outside. Misty took a step deeper to see the horrid sight. Bodies filled the church, with blood painted on the walls and on the floor. She gasped and covered her mouth. What the hell happened here? Meldrin questioned while walking back inside. Looks like a slaughterhouse, Misty replied. But whoever did this was sending a message. To put all these bodies in a church and leaving it standing? Meldrin searched around to see if he could find anything. Misty checked the altar and found a book on its pedestal. She scanned through the book, reading the words "Gods" and "Almighty Titans." In bold letters, the title was called "Cain, God of Magic." "Meldrin," she called. "Yeah, did you find something?" He lifted his head from his search. "Do you know of any gods?" she asked him. "The only three I know is Azardin, Cain, and Anak. 3 brothers said to rule over this world." Misty scratched her chin. How come I've never heard of them?" "Well, have you ever been to church?" She shook her head. "No. Should I have?" "The church talks about the gods all the time, saying they are our savior in our time of need, and that we must pray to them daily for protection. They are good fortune for us, and if we die, our bodies will be lifted up to the heavens." "Okay, but isn't heaven known as the angel city? When we die, our spirits go to the spirit realm, not heaven. Angels rule heaven, while the lords of hell rule, hell." Meldrin stared at her. And how do you know all that?" "I read it in a book," she replied. Angels and demons fought in our world long before mankind ever set foot on it." "You and your damn books," Meldrin whispered. "Misty, come look at this." She went over to Meldrin to see what he found. He held up a pendant that looked like a rose in full bloom, with the stem as a blade of a sword. Misty's eyes widened. "What is that?" Misty whispered. "What do you think it represents?" Misty shrugged. "I'm not sure." She lied, knowing that this had to connect with the Scarlet Rose she received yesterday. It was all too coincidental. "We should leave. There's nothing else here." Misty nodded. The two left the church. Meldrin glanced around. "Where's Lazarus?" "I don't know. Didn't you put him out here?" "Yes, I did. Lazarus, where are you?" They searched and found a path behind the church. It curled up to a hill where another structure stood. They saw Lazarus standing in front of the door. They hurried to him. "Lazarus, what did I tell you about running off?" "Brother, look." Misty and Meldrin glanced at the door. It had a shape impaled on it, a circle with a triangle inside, with lines curving all around inside the circle. "What is this?" Meldrin asked. Misty studied it closer. "It looks like a seal. Someone placed it here so people like us wouldn't snoop around and go inside." "But Misty, look!" Lazarus shouted. He raised his hand to the door. The seal glowed yellow, and shattered into dust. Misty and Meldrin glanced at each other. "Buddy, how did you learn to do that?" Lazarus shook his head. "I don't know." Misty flicked her wrist, and a spark of light appeared in her hand. The light turned into a ball of fire. She opened the door and walked inside. Meldrin grabbed Lazarus's hand and entered. Stairs led downward to the catacombs. The walls turned into dirt the deeper they went. "What the hell?" Misty whispered. "What is this?" They followed the path in front of them. The three came to an opening where they saw an orb sitting on a pedestal. It glowed with energy, creating a golden glow. Misty and Meldrin began to search for anything they could before examining the orb. Lazarus stared at the orb as if he was drawn to it. He stepped closer to the pedestal. Misty and Meldrin kept on searching as Lazarus reached for the orb. Brother?" Lazarus shouted. The two glanced to see Lazarus sticking out his hand, glowing gold like the orb. Meldrin ran to him, only to be blasted away. His body slammed against the wall and fell to the ground. Tendrils of light wrapped around Lazarus. He cried for help. I don't know what to do." The tendrils lifted Lazarus off the ground. He opened his mouth, and holy energy poured from it. A blinding light filled the room. The light consumed the orb, eliminating the energy. The orb shattered. Lazarus lost his balance. Misty rushed to catch him. Meldrin pushed himself to his feet. "What the hell was that?" Meldrin asked. Misty shook her head. "I don't know." "It was an angel," Lazarus replied. The two looked at him, then at each other. "What do you mean, an angel?" Meldrin argued. "That voice was an angel. His name is Lexion. He needs help." Meldrin walked over to the two and lifted his brother up. "Lazarus, what are you talking about? We didn't hear a voice." "But I did. I swear. It was an angel, looking for his friend. She's trapped somewhere. We need to help him." Meldrin glanced at Misty. "Misty, we cannot tell your mother about this. If that orb is what she was looking for, then we are in trouble." Misty shook her head. "Don't worry, I don't plan to. We should head back to Pandemonium and relax for the rest of the day. Maybe grab a bite to eat at the tavern." "Misty, what about the wagon full of supplies?" Meldrin asked. "We can worry about that tomorrow. Grimdahl didn't need them right away. We can make our trip in the morning." Meldrin nodded, and the three mounted on the wagon and headed back to Pandemonium. The journey was silent. Misty was trying to put the pieces in her head. What Lazarus said about the angel Lexion. It confused her. Neither her or Meldrin heard any voice in the room. Could Lazarus be hearing things? She shook that thought out of her mind. No, he wouldn't lie to us. Misty's mind hurt with questions that had no answers to them. But one statement her mother made burned in her mind. She needed to find someone pure of heart. Misty glanced at Lazarus. No, that can't be. He couldn't be what she needs, could it? There are other priests and paladins out there. What would make Lazarus so special? They made it to Pandemonium and parked the wagon near the alchemy shop. They headed to the tavern to grab a bite to eat. They sat down at the table and was given a plate of giant turkey legs with creamy mashed potatoes and a piece of corn on the cob. The three dug in, scarfing down their food. "So what are we going to do?" Meldrin asked while breaking the silence. "Why don't we get some rest? Then head to Grimdahl in the morning. We can talk about it tomorrow." Meldrin agreed. Misty stood in and slapped down a sack of gold coins on the table. She headed for the inn to rent a room. As she grabbed the key, she headed out again, looking at the night sky. People still roamed the streets at night, selling goods, and had a small dance-off in the town square. Misty felt the night breeze on her cheeks. It comforted her. She walked around the city, where she found a small cliff that looked over the ocean. She listened to the waves crashing against the rocks. "Enjoying the night?" a voice asked. Misty turned to see a man walking next to her. She could see that he had greenish blue hair and wore some kind of robe. Yeah, the sound of water always calms me. The name is Marvin. Misty. It's nice to meet you. You know, I don't meet new people often. I'm always traveling, and that can be lonely at times. This is the first time I've ever been to Pandemonium. She grinned. Yeah? What do you do? I'm a traveler and researcher. In research, I research all kinds of ancient places and objects, he answered awkwardly. What kind of places have you seen so far? Misty asked. I have seen the portals to hell and the gateways to heaven. I have seen the ancient Valkyrie city, Marvin replied. That must be interesting to see. Misty glanced at him. Have you ever seen a rose before? A rose? You mean like the flower? Yeah. Have you done research on that? She asked him. Well, I mean, I don't really do research on flowers. I leave that up to the herbalists. Misty nodded. I see. She took a step back. Well, I should be going. It's getting late, and I have a big day ahead of me. Okay, it was nice meeting you. Maybe I'll see you around, Misty. Yeah, maybe. Misty walked off, glancing behind her to see if he was still watching the ocean. As her eyes darted to the opening, she saw he was gone, but something fumbled in the wind, landing on the ground where they stood. She hurried back over and picked up the parchment paper. Misty flicked her wrist and sparked a fire. It was a page from a journal. The title read, The Scarlet Rose, with the same symbol she saw today with the rose head and blade. Her eyes widened. She tucked away the paper into her pocket and walked back to the inn in silence. And that is the end of Chapter 2. Thank you all for listening in. But before I go, I know this was a short chapter, and I just have something to say. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think is going to happen in Chapter 3? And what do you think the Scarlet Rose is? We've seen it in Chapter 1 where Misty getting the Scarlet Rose, and now we've seen a parchment paper that has the title The Scarlet Rose on it. So what do you guys think that is, and what do you guys think is going to happen in the next chapter? For anyone who replies, I will read off what people think in the next video, and we will go from there. I hope you all really enjoyed this. I'm actually really liking reading out loud and reading my own story. It's actually quite fun. So I thank you all for stopping by and listening in. Let me know how things are. Let me know how you liking it so far. And yeah, that is that. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Remember to be the best you can be, and I will see you all in the next A Story with Gorte. Bye!